Hi, Mo. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. Here
You
we are
keeping
again,
well?
post summer.
Absolutely, yeah. And doesn't it feel autumnal? There's definitely been a change in the weather this week, hasn't it?
It definitely does. Yeah. And I think it's always, as recruiters, I think it's always an interesting time for us, isn't it? Because the summer is the summer.
Yeah,
And it doesn't really go quiet as it used to, but it's always a bit of a scramble with holidays and into recruitment processes taking forever because people are away. It can feel a bit disjointed, and then all of a sudden you're in September and the job flow goes up and things start to move more quickly. So it feels like from a weather, it's a reset, but also in the recruitment landscape feels like a bit of a reset as well
yeah, it
for
definitely
me.
does. Actually, I was catching up with somebody who we recently placed into a role of financial controller recently. He was just asking, and we were talking about that exact same thing. And he
Mm,
said, "Oh, really?" He said, "I didn't realise it was as seasonal." And we
mm.
do, obviously, having been in the industry for as long as we
Yeah,
have, we
yeah,
realise it's a very seasonal business, isn't it? And that summer
yeah.
season definitely elongates hiring processes, decisions, and
Definitely does.
recruitment. Yeah. So,
Yeah, it
but
definitely does. Trying to accommodate holidays, candidates are holidays, clients holidays. Always a challenge, but
yeah, and in your world, is this kind of quarter for us, September to December, is probably one of our busiest. Is that the same for you guys in HR?
do you know what? Actually, we've tended to find that it stays pretty steady for us throughout the year these days. We're not the only time we go really quiet is Christmas, and that's because we shut
Mhm.
over the Christmas period, and most of our clients do as well, or they don't recruit over that time. But actually, for summer for us, we often find it's quite busy, and given that we are a business of working parents and we're managing a holiday relay throughout the summer, it's like really passing the baton between from one to the other with the jobs
Yeah.
that we're working on. But I did have a lovely compliment from a candidate who's just been offered a job through us last week to say that she dealt with four of the team over the summer throughout this process, but she said it was seamless and it was
Yeah.
a really great experience. So that was lovely. But it always feels like a bit of you're trying to be a swan gliding, but really underneath you're doing this.
Yeah.
Um, because there's just not as many of us around, and then we're back in September and it just changes, and it's like look forward. But so for us, we have noticed, I mean, we've had quite a high number of new jobs in this week, so clearly people are coming back from holiday and then cracking on with their recruitment. So yeah, we do see this, but with notice periods and everything else, the likelihood is a lot of jobs that come in now, people will be starting in 2025, which is
Yeah.
crazy. But
Yeah.
there you go. There
Here
you
we are
go.
again on the cusp of another
What
year.
about you? Is it easy? Is it like
Exactly
that for
that.
you?
Yeah.
Mm,
Back to school, back to work. Several vacancies in the last few weeks. Potential big campaign to
mm.
recruit multiple roles for a larger employer in Teesside, which is great. But there seems to be that movement beyond the summer season. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and obviously, the title of today's roundtable was
Mm,
What People Really Want Now.
mm.
And given the launch of our inaugural salary survey guide and workplace
Yeah.
survey, and obviously the data that you guys collect from MySay, we thought this was a really good topic for us to share
Yeah.
our insights, as they're not perhaps always obvious to people who don't spend their life in recruitment.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the interesting thing is, so for people that don't know, obviously, I'm here as part of this as Recruiters Roundtable with my Sullivan Brown recruitment hat on, but I have another business called MySay, and we do employee research. So we survey new starters and leavers, and we do stay interviews and culture surveys and things like that. So some of the stats that I've been looking at are, what are people telling us are their reasons for joining a business? Because I think it feels to me like since COVID, we've still been playing around with this. What do people want and what are companies willing to offer? And it's felt to me a little bit like there's been a bit of a disconnect over time, especially over this year, with employers
Mm.
thinking the market is saying one thing and candidates thinking the market is saying something else. And seeing this kind of, I don't know whether it's a contradiction or an internal battle that businesses are having of we should get everybody back in, we should encourage people to be in the office more, but candidates aren't always wanting that. So it's becoming, I think, harder for companies with their employer brand and their EVP to be making that
Mm.
consistent, but also to meet candidate expectations. So it feels like a bit of a melting pot. So I'm interested to see what your data says, because I know what ours says. And I think from a MySay point of view, the data that we're getting and the feedback that we're getting is matching what our candidates are telling us about why they want to move on from the job that they're in at the moment, and why they would be attracted to the employees that we're talking to them about or not. Because there's plenty of times at the moment where on paper a job and a candidate would be a perfect match, and a company and a candidate would be a perfect match, but actually they're not when you dig into the context or the expectations. So it should be great, but it isn't, and people are more aware, I think, of what's motivating them than they have been before, and it's very complex. It's a complex decision.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
think
it's not a one thing decision, is it?
no. If COVID taught us anything, it's that there is new ways of thinking and new motivations and new factors that people really consider when they're looking at their career and what they want for themselves. And the results of our workplace survey weren't a surprise to me or to our team, but they consolidated and confirmed what we thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, that getting that data together for our first salary survey and workplace survey. So we
I know,
obviously
well
asked
done
people, their current salary, and therefore we've been able to provide a really good tool for accounting and finance professionals and employers in the Northeast. What is the typical starting salary range for roles at various levels and for various disciplines within that accounting and finance function, and where would they typically start at? But then we, as you do with MySay, asked a whole load of questions around hybrid working, motivations, reason for staying, reason for leaving, pay rise, are they valued? And that data has already been complemented by our clients that have seen the early release of that salary survey. And that's why we thought, both of us, it would be great to share this because, like you said, spoiler alert, it's not always pay.
It's not. And I think, pay is obviously an important factor. Everyone wants to be able to pay their bills. Everyone wants to be able to enjoy their life and feel rewarded for the work that they do. But reward goes so far beyond pay. And I think if we have a look at the MySay data, which I have up there on the screen in front of me, the number one reason by a very long way that we've got people joining businesses and saying that they joined a business is career progression and development.
Yeah.
Aside from that, the number one reason that people are leaving businesses is career progression. So it absolutely adds up. But I think that we've been doing a lot of talking in our HR events recently about human sustainability. And I think there's an awful lot now around people are expecting development from their employer. And they don't expect a job for life, but they do expect lifetime employability. So they're looking for development, and that development may not be related to the job that they do, but they want development, they want growth, and they want to see that they are making themselves more employable, whether it's to stay with that employer or move. And if you are one of these companies that thinks, well, I'm not going to develop them because they're not going to be here to for me to see the benefit of that, it's incredibly short-sighted. Because I think the other thing that companies really need to think about is their leaver advocacy. So when people do leave us and they go somewhere else, what are they saying about us? Are they saying good things about us? I think, when people join or leave a business, it's an incredibly complex decision. And they're hyper focused on the reasons that they've made that decision. So it's a really great time to ask people. So we're seeing career progression, career development, but also then followed up with improved work-life balance. So, when I was growing up in the world of work, Paul, I'm older than you, but we grew up in similar business, same business, similar, same industry. Career progression and development often meant that you were working really long hours, you were giving everything to that job, you were doing what was expected of you. I just think people's expectations have changed, that they're saying, I want you to add value to me, not just always extract value from me. And so I will work hard for you, but you are going to have to give me growth. I want to be able to see my family, or I want to be able to do my exercise. There's this whole kind of broader set of expectations that people have, and it's not going away. And I really don't think it's going to. And you have to get under the skin of it and know it if you're going to attract and retain the best people.
Yeah, and our survey said exactly the same. So the number one reason, like you just said, for either staying or leaving was career progression. And like you said, that's so important. We've written various blogs and reports on how to do that, how to motivate people, how to develop people's career. But if people are not fulfilled, they will leave. Is what our data tells us. So where does salary rank in your survey, Mo? So for us, it was number 5.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. So looking at it here, actually in the top 5 reasons for joining a business, it doesn't feature at all.
Okay.
So it's actually way down, round about number 10 out of the
Mm.
reasons that we see people wanting to join a business. But that's their primary drivers. So at MySay, when we're asking people why you're joining a business, we're asking what their primary driver is, but we also ask about contributory drivers. And we talk about push and pull factors.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone is leaving your business, and they're leaving you for pay, that's a pull factor. Someone's
Mm-hmm.
pulling them away from you by offering them more money. But the chances are that it's the push factors that are well within your control as a business that have driven them to the point that pay becomes a driver for them to leave. So even though you have a primary driver of, say, pay, which we don't hear actually, are primary drivers in the main that we're seeing. And this is across lots of different sectors, lots of different types of worker, but we're seeing career progression, improved work-life balance, career change, employer reputation, and recommendation and referral. So
Mm.
advocacy. Those are our top 5 reasons people are joining a business. But then when you look at their contributory factors, pay is number 2. So good reputation as an employer at the moment in our survey is number 1, even as a contributory factor. But better pay is number 2. So what we're seeing is, does it form part of the overall decision?
Mm.
Yes, it does. Are people considering pay when they are considering this move? Absolutely, they are. And it's the same with leavers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we're not seeing it as a primary driver. So no one in the main is coming to you just because you've offered them more money. It's much more about the broader deal than that. So yes, you might need to offer them more money. Actually, not all the time at the moment. But
Mm-hmm.
have people bought into your social purpose? Are they bought into your values and your behaviours as an employer? Are they bought into what they're going to get out of the role and the personal growth that they're going to get? And that personal growth might be, it's the same job, but you have a scheme where people can volunteer once a month. So I feel like
Yeah.
as a person, I can contribute more to society. I can do more around social corporate responsibility. I am going to grow as a person, even though I'm still processing invoices every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about that growth, because not every company can just keep promoting people. So it's much broader than that. So yeah, sorry, to come back to your original question, what we say see with pay, it's not in our top 5 primary drivers at all,
Mm-hmm.
but it is number 2 in the contributory. So it forms part of the decision, but it's not the final decision maker.
And you'll be the same as us, Mo. We've already spoke actually just prior to the session
Mm,
about employer and employee value proposition, and how well businesses can translate everything that you've just discussed. Because I
mm,
believe the majority of businesses understand their values, understand their purpose, have good corporate social responsibility, maybe working towards or have achieved B Corp certification, and
mm,
great attributes that are going to attract new employees.
yeah.
What I don't see as well, certainly in the SME sector,
Mm,
is that EVP translated to help with talent attraction.
mm,
I think with businesses that have it better and get it right are those ones that you often work with, we often work with, where they have an in-house talent acquisition function.
yeah.
But often, if you're an SME business and you have a HR function that has to
Mm,
deal with talent acquisition, sometimes how they promote that to attract the next generation of
mm,
talent, it needs help. And that's where the likes of you and I come in when we're working on that campaign. It's like, okay, so let's review your materials.
yeah.
How are you positioning yourself and how are you actually translating that so that
Yeah.
people understand what opportunities are available and why they want to join your organisation? Do you
Completely.
see that maybe needs work in certain areas more?
Yeah, do you know what? I see that all the time. And I think that actually there's so many things you just said that I could fill a whole session with. I think, firstly, you're right in that a lot of companies invest a lot in developing their EVP. What I still don't think companies are doing enough is asking these kind of questions. I don't think people are listening to their starters and leavers enough. So they
Mm.
invest a lot of time and money in putting in solutions that they think are going to attract people to their business that aren't going to attract people to their business.
Yeah.
So, B Corp is a great thing, actually. We see a lot of HR people really attracted to companies that are B Corp, but actually it might not make a jot of difference to somebody who's going to be working in your warehouse. I think you've got to understand, what do people actually want from our business, and are we giving it
Mm.
to them? Because the amount of exit interviews that we do, or stay interviews, where people say, I was sold the dream, I thought it was going to be this, but it's actually this. I think you've got to be really careful not to oversell it. I
Hmm.
think when it comes to smaller companies, or even bigger companies that are getting it right. For me, it's about being authentic. So a lot of companies that go down the EVP route, firstly, make the mistake of not asking what people want. So they put a lot of time and effort into selling something that's not actually attracting anybody in the first place. So do ask and do look at your data and do look what's motivating people at the moment. That's where we can help, because we speak to a lot of people and we know what people are looking for. I think the other thing is, be authentic with it. So when I'm representing a client and I'm speaking to candidates about their job and I'm approaching people and I'm screening people for the role, people don't really want to know. They're not asking me, actually, can I see the job description most of the time? Because they kind of know what that's going to be. What they want to know is the context. So if they're going to be a people director, for example, chief people officer, whatever it might be that I'm recruiting, and, in your world, finance, they kind of know what that job is. They know what it's going to be, but actually, who am I reporting to? What are they like? What is the journey that the company's going on? Where are they at in their people journey at the moment? Where do they want me to take them? How do I do that? How open are they actually to me doing that? Where can I make a difference? Where will I have impact? Where will I contribute? What is the culture like? What is the leader like? What is the flexibility like? And I think, so I spend 90% of my time when I'm briefing someone on a job talking about all of the things, the context, the story. And when I say story, I mean the truth. Not painting a picture that isn't right, actually talking to them openly so a candidate can decide, this isn't right for me, or, oh my God, I love that. And they can connect with it emotionally and they understand what they would be going into. So I think, job seekers are candidates, people who are passive, whether they're active, they've got a clear idea of what they want, and it just goes beyond the job. And so even if you don't have lots of money to invest in your EVP, I would say be authentic, use your social media, talk about what you're doing as a business, bring yourself to life basically for clients, because I find that that's what I'm doing for my clients. That's where I think I really add value, is bringing them to life to those best candidates, so those candidates can make a decision on whether they want to go forward for that role or not, and whether it's right for them.
Yeah. And if an employer does nothing else, because that's a big exercise, but very worthwhile in terms of the right talent attraction and importantly retention, because it's an internal comms exercise as much as an external comms exercise. You're getting all those things right. But if you do absolutely nothing else, please don't just post a job advert that is a copy and paste of your job description. Because absolutely, like you said, Mo, we still see it. We still see it done by people in our industry, which, wow, surprises me and shocks me. But people just take a job description, copy and paste it, immediate turn off. People absolutely know what is involved in a management accountant role, what is involved in a financial controller role. What, as exactly what you said, Mo, what they want to know is what makes this one different.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, Paul, it's a purchasing decision. So if you think about how, recruitment is a purchasing decision. If you choose to join a business, it's another complex decision. So if you liken it to decisions that we make all the time, so say we're going to buy a car. So I'm a fan of Volvo. I drive Volvos. I like them. Boxy and good. It's always stayed with me from that film in the 80s, isn't it? Volvos, they're boxy, but they're good. Anyway, I love my Volvos. But there's plenty of places I can go to buy a Volvo. So I don't have to go to the place I go to. I can go to lots of different places. I make a purchasing decision, and generally my purchasing decision is based on location, the feel of the showroom, whether people hassle me and oversell to me. Don't like that. So that will put me off straight away. The level of service I've had from people, reviews, online reviews, the fact that they give me coffee. I'm easily won around. But I think, we make these decisions all the time, and I'm not really making that purchasing decision based on the car, because I can buy the car from anywhere. So and it's the same with work, so if people want to be a HR business partner, or even taking it out of the finance and HR world, so somebody wants to be a receptionist, someone wants to work on reception, they're going to be making decisions based on, well, can I get to you? How nice are you to me when I walk in through the door? What are the type of people that I'm going to be greeting? What tools do you have and resources? How well are you going to set me up from day one? How are you going to induct me? How am I going to be rewarded? Who's my manager? all of these things that are so different from the actual job. So
Mm.
the companies that I see that are doing better around attraction are the ones that have a bigger story to tell. And it's not always the bigger brands, but it's the ones that are really prioritizing their people experience and, say, their corporate social responsibility. So when people go online, they can see authentically people that work there
Mhm.
endorsing that business, being advocates for that business. They can see that people are off volunteering this week, so they know that that company is involved in that kind of thing. You know, bring yourself to life for your
Yeah.
job seekers, because that's how they're going to make the decision about whether they want to join you.
Yeah, and I know the answer. Well, I know what I think is the answer to this. But when you're talking to somebody who is just about to kind of think, I might be ready to move,
Mm,
and you present an opportunity, it might be of use to somebody listening today to say, well, what does a job seeker research?
mm.
If they were considering an opportunity, the bare minimum they expect is a job description. But what else, in your experience, would they consider, and what should a hiring manager or an employer listening today kind of look to improve for even attracting that application?
Yeah, that's massive, Paul.
Mm.
It's massive. And I think it does vary depending on the level of the job,
Yeah.
and everything else. For me, it comes down to context.
Hmm.
That's what it comes down to. I think, if you think about that purchasing decision, if you think about whether someone's going to apply for your role, can they emotionally connect with
Mm.
what it is that you are selling, which is your job opportunity? So
Hmm.
years ago, when I went on sales training, years and years and years ago, something that always stuck with me is people buy with emotion and justify with logic.
Hmm.
And we do that all the time, or we'd never buy design or anything. Do you know what I mean? We wouldn't,
Yeah.
because a handbag is a handbag, whether it comes from Primark or Mulberry. Um, so we attach emotional sentiment to these things, and then we justify that with logic. So people will justify a drop in salary for a job they really want or a company they
Hmm.
really want to work for. I see it all the time, and we go through this process. We go, okay, well, it's 10K a year less, but do you know what? By the time the tax man's taken this, and it's closer to home, so I'll save on fuel, and I really like the boss, and
Mm.
so I my advice would be, figure out what it is about your business that people connect to,
Hmm.
because the job is the job. And if the job is the selling point, if it's an amazing job, if it's cuddling pandas for a living, great. But if it's processing invoices or handling employee relations queries, then it's processing invoices or handling employee relations queries. So maybe you want to have a look at, what do we have in place that's going to make us a good employer for you? So
Hmm.
do we have great managers? Do we have PDPs? Do we know, this is one of my favorite things, and we do this with MySay, do we know what our leaver net promoter score and our starter net promoter score is? Can we
Hmm.
actually bring to life for our new starters that our current new starters are scoring us this? When
Hmm.
it comes to being net promoters, do we have that information? Because if you think about how we buy on Amazon, we look at the reviews.
Hmm.
So the other thing is Glassdoor. I'll come to that, but I think, can people go online? Can they look at your business? And can they find out enough to form a picture of what it's like to work for you? In the same way that when we buy a holiday, can I picture myself on that sunbed round your pool? I can. I'll probably buy your holiday. Do we really understand what we're selling, and are we bringing it to life? Because nobody is going to come, if thinking back to my finance days, let's go for a purchase ledger clock. Nobody is going to apply for that job just because it's doing purchase ledger, because they do purchase ledger already. Like,
Hmm.
why would they if they're
Yeah.
unhappy where they are? But they might do if there's something about your company that really appeals to them, whether it's your company purpose, your company team, your values, the fact that you're a 4-day week, the fact that you've got a brilliant pension, the fact that
Mm.
you've got amazing holidays, and the fact that you do volunteering, not free fruit and pool tables, let me just say, or the fact that you offer development.
Mm.
Maybe people get a fund for development, or you offer internal apprenticeships for people to progress. You've got to, what's your hook? What are
Hmm.
people buying from you, basically, to get them through the door? And then when they come through that door, do they really experience that? So it's a difficult one because it's so broad, but I think, be clear on what your deal is and
Hmm.
make sure that you're using that to sell it, rather than just telling people what the job is, in
Yeah.
my experience.
And you mentioned something there that is becoming increasingly interesting topic is probably just a catch-all phrase to describe it: hybrid working and that working pattern. What are you seeing from an employer perspective and from an employee demand perspective? Because we've had some interesting stats on this, and it's
Yeah.
included in our workplace survey. But what are you seeing in your world?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'm seeing, and then you can tell me whether it matches your stats, shall we? Candidates still expect an element of hybrid, um, and it's not going away. And in my opinion, neither should it. But companies are still struggling with where we should be. So there are more companies going back into the office, and also there's more people who've realised, oh, I kind of like the social contact of being in the office. So my feeling is that, but when we get a job where someone wants someone on site 5 days a week, it really limits your talent pool because it's not the norm.
Yeah.
Neither are we seeing official 4-day weeks becoming the norm. So really, the people who are most attractive to the candidates that I'm speaking to are the ones that have a degree of flexibility around it and take a really grown-up attitude towards it of, okay, this is what we think is needed to do the job. I think people are very willing to be on site 3 days a week, which is probably a progression from where we were, but not really wanting to do much more than that. So, most of our employers are okay with that. We do have some that are absolutely no, they need to be on site 5 days a week, but they have very limited choice of candidate because candidates just don't need to do that and don't want to do that. That's what we're finding.
Yeah. And that's exactly what our survey indicated as well. One of the questions we asked was, what do you want to work in terms of that hybrid working pattern, and what do you actually work? And what was really interesting, and we plotted those on a line chart. And actually, for salaries under 40k, there was a disparity. People wanted to work less from the office, but were required to work more from the office. I think the figures are 4.2 and 3.4. So not a huge amount, but pretty much a day. But as you went up the pay scale, and by the time you reached the kind of executive level of over 100k, they were aligned. And people want to work and were working 4 days a week in the office.
Right.
Have you seen any difference in terms of disparity according to the level of salary and remuneration?
So, yes and no. So, in our world of HR, I would say not so much actually. People are really quite open. I think so. So maybe we're quite lucky in that. I think we see a slight gender split. To be honest, what we do see is in some of our exit interview feedback at MySay is people who are maybe in the lower paid jobs feeling that there's a sense of disparity there and that they are expected to do things in terms of being on site that some of the senior leaders aren't. And that causes massive issues. So I think you can't expect every role to work in exactly the same way. It's always been that way. People who are in, say, working in production in a factory or whatever, they have to be there, don't they? I mean, you can't do that from home. Whereas if you are doing what we do, I can do this quite happily from home. And people want different things. So I think we do see some disparity, but I think there's always been, but why would an exec have a parking space and someone else wouldn't? There's always been disparity. But I think with this one, we get our knickers in a twist a little bit about it. But ultimately, to me, the companies that are managing it right are the ones where there can be flexibility. They have a complete kind of culture of psychological safety and positive intent where they can have this flexibility so that if someone wants to work in the office they can, and if someone wants to work from home they can, around a set of maybe central parameters. So we don't see it as much in our world, I don't think, but that's probably because we're in the HR world. We see it more in our exit survey data because that's across the board.
Yeah, and I'm conscious we're running out of time, as we always do in these half-an-hour quick-fire sessions. But if an employer were looking at the benefit that was most in demand beyond the salary package, what would you say that is in the current climate?
Oh, that is so difficult. To me, I think flexibility has to be there. I think it does have to be there. But I also think that, and it's not a benefit, actually, it should be absolutely right. People want development. They want to know that they're going to be able to grow. Whether they realise that they want that or whether it just comes as a factor further down the line. So I would say, have you got your development pathways in? Have you got things in place that are going to help people to grow personally or work-wise. But also, flexibility and holidays we see as well, to be honest, but I think it's related. People really
Yeah.
want that downtime.
Yeah. And that's often a question that we're asked, annual leave. And
Yeah.
what are you most commonly seeing employers offer now?
We're still probably around about the 25 days plus bank
Yeah.
holidays.
Yeah.
But I will say that when I get one where it's more, it's an absolute positive when it
Yeah.
comes to,
Yeah.
when it comes to selling that benefit.
Yeah.
People really value that.
Yeah, I echo that. 25 days for us is a standard now. When you get one that's less, you kind of go, oh, and wince and go,
Yeah.
oh, that's going to make life a little bit more
Yeah.
challenging to find the best person for you.
Yeah.
And I understand that can be a big burden for small businesses to change. But I think progressive strategy towards getting to that 25 plus bank holidays is where most businesses need to be to
Yeah.
compete on a level playing field.
Yeah, I would say
Well, we
so.
always end these sessions with a top tip. What would be the top tip that you would share for helping our audience understand what people want right now?
I just think understand that when people are thinking of joining or leaving a business, it's an incredibly complex decision. So make sure that you understand what your full deal is for somebody to come and work for you, your EVP. Understand that and make sure that you're open about it and honest about it and authentic with it.
Yeah. And I think to extend that, I think understand your starters as much as your leavers. Understand why people chose to join your business as well as those ones that chose to leave,
Yep.
and communicate that. It all links back to your EVP. If you understand it and you can communicate it, you're on the right path.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for your time again today, Mo.
Thank
and we
you.
will see you next month.
You will. See you
Take care.
then.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.